Good morning and welcome to the video for sixth grade for Wednesday, January the 6th. This is going to be a video for lesson 7.2. So we are going to keep going with what we worked on Monday, working with exponents. We're going to now use those as part of expressions. So they're going to ask us to use order of operations to evaluate expressions. And so we can see that right here, our PIMDAS. So operations parentheses, and then we do exponents, then multiply, then divide from left to right, then add and subtract from left to right. So we're going to need to keep this part in mind as we work through this lesson. We will be doing a variety of different things, some of which they'll give us what the answer is supposed to be, and then we have to figure out how to group the numbers together to get that. But we'll do those later on in the lesson. So, all right, so let's go ahead and start with our unlock the problem. So we're shooting 6 arrows at a target. 2 arrows hit the 8-point ring, 4 arrows hit the 4-point ring. And so we want to go ahead and find the answer to this particular expression. So we have no parentheses. So first thing we need to do is find the value of our exponent. So 4 times 4 would be the number that we're looking for the answer to 4 to the second power, or 4 squared. So think about that for a moment. That should give us 16. And we kind of see that down here if you're looking at that. And then we are going to next multiply. So I'm going to put an M here. You could write the word out. I'm not going to take the time to do that since this video will probably be about 20 minutes, which is about the length I want to go as is without taking the time to write all this stuff out. So we're going to multiply from left to right. That's going to give us 16 on this part as well. And then we're going to do 16 plus 16, which would give us 32. And so our archer scored a total of 32 points. And now they want us to go ahead and evaluate this expression. So we are going to do this part first. So again, on Monday, we worked with powers of 2. And so you should hopefully remember that we are going to be doing 2 times 2 times 2 to get the value for 2 to the third power. So hopefully you can do that pretty quickly. We're going to use a doubling strategy to find the answer to that. So go ahead and put that in and go ahead and do your division. And if you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get our answer. So we're going to go from 2 up to 4, then up to 8. And so when we're doubling, we'll end up with 8 here. 24 divided by 8 would give us 3. All right, next page. So we are going to see a lot of things kind of already filled in for us. So I'm going to kind of go through the individual steps. So the first thing that we would end up doing, is to find the value of 13 minus 4 because we have parentheses for this problem. So we would perform the operation in parentheses first. And so the answer to that would give us 13 minus 4, which would be 9. The next thing we are going to do is find our value of numbers with exponents. So we're going to do 2 to the third power, which we just did in the previous thing that we just worked through. So that would again give us 8, which they give that part down here. They give the 9 part right here. So the next thing we are going to do is multiply and divide. So that word divide would go here from left to right. So we want the answer to 72 divided by 9. If you look on the paper, you already have it written down. If we are working with one of our strategies that we've used before, you could start with 10 times 8, and that would give us 80. We can work backward one group of 8, and that would give us, we would do 9, times 10. Actually, we could do cheat and do that. We could do 8 times 10 and then take away a group of 8 to get 9 groups of 8. Or we could start with 90, then go back to 81, then back to 72. So we would get 8 groups of 9 doing it that way. So that's going to give us an 8 here. So then we are going to multiply here, and then we are going to do 5 times 8, which is going to give us 40. And then we add our two numbers together. 8 plus 40 gives us 48. So again, we're going to start with our parentheses. Then we're going to do the part with our exponent. Then we're going to divide, get the answer to that, do the answer to this side doing multiplication, then add the two answers together to finish our problem. All right, number 2, we have an online bookstore that had approximately 10 to the 5th power. So this would be the number of zeros that we would end up having after the 1. So when we're working with powers of 10, this part would be worth 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. And so we can count back from the right, put in a comma here. So 100,000 times 2, and then that would give us our answer for the problem, which would be 200,000. So if we're working with exponents with powers of 10, it usually ends up being a little bit easier. Again, that has to do with the number of zeros we would write after the 1. Explain why the order of operations is necessary. Hopefully this makes sense by now. After you've had me for several years, I've talked to you guys a little bit about this. If you are on Facebook or have a family member who is on Facebook, occasionally you will run across these pictures that have all these weird different symbols and things, and they have little tricks, but they want you to try to use the order of operations, and then you get people that put some really interesting answers because either they don't remember how to do the order of operations, or they remember, but there's some weird trick. I'll have to see if I can find an example of that and maybe put it in at some point. I know I have some on my phone, but they're not very kind. They're very nitpicky. Like you actually have to count the number of laces on the shoe, and that has to change the answer and stuff. But order of operations is very important because if we just do things in the order that we go from the left to the right, then we're going to get something weird. So let's look at number 2 here. So if I go ahead and do 6 plus 3 and then take that to the 3rd power, I'm going to get something drastically different. And then if I go ahead and take that number and divide by 9, then I'm going to end up with 9. Let's see, 981. 81 times 9 is 729. I think that's right. 729 divided by 9, which is going to give me a really, really large answer. But if I go ahead and do this in the correct order, I need to start here. So if I do that, 3 to the 3rd power is going to give me 3 times 3, which is 9. 9 times 3, which is 27. Okay. So then if I go ahead and do this part first, and then I try to do everything from left to right, I'm still going to end up with something weird. So the next part I need to do is 27 divided by 9. So if I do that, that's going to give me 3. I'm going to use this. I'm not actually adding. I'm just kind of grouping together. So don't think like we're used to seeing that and we will like, oh, we're doing 27 plus 9. No, we're not really. I'm just kind of grouping this together in a different way. I could go ahead and put them in parentheses here and do 27 divided by 9 and then write that down here. But our final answer is going to be 6 plus 3, which is 9, which is a drastic difference than if we were to try to work everything from left to right in the order that it shows up with in the problem. So if we don't follow the order of operations, we, one, may be making it much more difficult to actually solve the problem, but we're also not going to get the right answer. And we're going to get some very drastic, crazy answers sometimes if we don't do them all the steps in the right order. So I'm not going to worry about number 1. Let's go ahead and keep going. Let's do number 3 now. So parentheses first, then exponents, then multiplication and division, then addition and subtraction. And we're always going to go from left to right. So go ahead and pause the video. go ahead and work through each of those steps. And then I am going to write in what I would like you to see from you when we're actually doing this. And it's going to be something similar to this, where we're writing out each step of the problem. We're going to have what's left over after we do one of those steps. So for instance, I would start with this, and then I would write down what would be the answer to this, then put that with the exponent divided by 9. Then I would find the answer to that and then write that down below as this divided by 9, and so forth. So go ahead and do that real quick. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to change the size of my pen, or not. I guess it was already as small as it was going to get. And so when you're ready, we'll go ahead and talk through the answer. So I already gave you a hint because I wasn't thinking about that when I was doing that. So we're going to take 15 minus 3. That's going to move my page. Instead of giving me the pen, give me the pen. Of course, now I have to re-center this so everybody can actually see. All right, here we go. So we're going to do 12. And then, so my second row is going to be 12 to the second power divided by 9. And then we need to find the answer to 12 times 12 to get this part. And so that would give us 144 divided by 9. And then the final part would be to find the answer to 144 divided by 9. That should be 16. I had to think about that for a second. So 90 plus 54. So 10 times 9 would give us 90, and then 6 times 9 would give us 54. Add those together, and that would give us 144. All right, so let's do the same thing for this one. So again, we're going to write down below after we solve each step. Now this time we have the exponent inside the parentheses. So before we can resolve the parentheses, we actually have to do the exponent. Okay, so I know it lists as parentheses, then exponents. We have a tiebreaker here. So we can't do 8 plus 9 and then take the square of that number. We have to do 9 squared first, then add 8 to it, and that will conclude that part. Then we can keep going from there. Okay, so the answer that we're working with should be fairly easy by the time we get to that step. So go ahead and take a look at that. Pause the video if you need to. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit play. So again, we cannot do the addition part inside the parentheses until after we do the exponent part. So we are going to have 9 times 9, which is 81, plus 8. And then I would put this in parentheses, minus 4 times 10. And I know it's really nitpicky to make sure that you write every single bit of this line down, and then we're going to do this part next. But it's a really good habit to get into, because as we get into more and more complicated things, you're going to be expected to write down each step of the answer so that if you make a mistake, you know what you did wrong and how you can fix it, okay? So if you just give me a number down here below, I'm going to make you go back and redo this whole thing to make sure that you know that you got the right answer, because it's really easy to make a mistake, especially when we get into more difficult stuff, getting into higher level algebra, and we're working with things like this, and then we're also having to solve for something. It's really easy to make a mistake. And so we want to make sure that we write each step down to make sure that if we make a mistake, we can find it and be able to correct it. So in this case, we are going to add those two numbers together. That's going to give us 89 minus 4 times 10. And sorry, this is going to look kind of crummy on the screen just because it's really hard to write with this, again, as you guys are probably aware. So my next step, we are going to carry our 89 down because we're not going to do subtraction yet. We're going to do our multiplication. So we have to do 4 times 10. That's going to give us 40. And then when I go ahead and subtract, that's going to give me 49. And so my answer would come down here. And this would be a way that we could go ahead and write that problem, showing every single step along the way. So that's kind of the expectation. I want to see each individual step solved. So I'm going to do one more of these. And then we're going to go down and take a look at a couple of these on 8 through 10, because we'll have something similar to this on our homework. I think I'm only giving you one of those, maybe two. I'll have to look when we get to that page, but I've written down the homework problems we're going to work on there. So what I would like you to do is let's go ahead and take... Well, let's just go ahead and take this one. So we are going to work number 5, and we are going to work in order. So we're going to start with the first thing that we need to do. I'm not going to give you any suggestions this time. So if you need to pause and rewind and take a look and see, or you can look in your book at the order of operations. So I think I may actually do this one and number 7, but we'll do this one first, and then we'll see how we're doing on time. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video if you need to. We're going to write out each step as we go. Okay. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit play. All right. So first thing I have to do is this part. So I'm going to carry down my 10. I'm going to do 10 plus, and then I need to write the answer to 6 times 6, which is going to be 36 times 2 divided by 9. And so now the next thing I have to do is multiplication and division from left to right. And I notice that I'm wiggling my finger, and it's probably going to look the opposite. So from the left to the right, I'm moving it backward now so that hopefully when you're looking at it, it's looking like it's at your left instead of the other way around. So 36 times 2, that should be really easy for us. That's going to give us 72. So I'm going to actually write that in, and then I'm going to write the rest of the problem. So 10 plus 72 divided by 9. My next step is going to be 10 plus, and then we need to find the answer to 72 divided by 9. We already actually got that on a different page or farther up the page. So that's going to give us 8. So 10 plus 8, and then the answer is going to be the answer to 10 plus 8, which would be 18. I think I am going to skip over this in the interest of time. So let's go down here. Let's take a look and see if I were to go ahead and group something in parentheses, what do I need to do to get the answer 10? So keep in mind, to the second power, which is going to be worth 100. We're subtracting a 50 at some point, and we're dividing by 5 at some point. So if we were to do that in the order that it's written, we would end up with 100 minus, and then 50 divided by 5 would be the next part that we would do. Okay. So think about if there's a way that we can use parentheses to change the order that we would have to do something in, because we would have to do that part before we follow the rest of the order of operations list. And so, oh goodness, what is this? Oh yeah. So my wife sent me a text. Sorry about that. So we are going to have 100 minus 50 divided by 5. So this is going to be what this part is worth. So to get it to where we could actually divide and get an answer of 10, what we would want to do is actually divide after we do 100 minus 50. That would give us 50 divided by 5, and then the answer to 50 divided by 5 would give us 10. And so that would be where we would want to put it for that. Let's do number 9 as well. So keep in mind, something to the first power is going to be the number itself. So we're working with a 20. We have a 2 times 5 in here somewhere, and we have a plus 4. So if we were to do everything in the order that it already shows up, we would do 2 times 5, which is worth 10. And then we would go ahead and add across, which I don't think is going to actually get us to 38. Yeah, that would give us 34. So is there something slightly different that we can do to get exactly 38? Actually, that's a good question. Hold on a minute. What's going on here? 10, 30. Yeah, that's 34. Huh. Oh, you know what? I think there's one of these that's actually a mistake. So let's try this other one instead. Sorry. I don't have the teacher edition with me. I think this is one of the ones that had a mistake in it. Because what we would end up with if we were to go ahead and group anything together. Um, oh, I'm sorry. No, never mind. Never mind. No, there's not a mistake. Here. Okay. So um, there are a couple problems in this book. I forget which lessons that actually are incorrect, and I have to skip over them. So what we would actually end up doing for this one is to group this part together. So this would give us 9, and then we would do 2 times 9 plus 20, and so that would give us 20 plus 18, which would give us 38. So actually, that one's okay. So we're good on that. So these can be a little bit confusing even for me sometimes. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna actually skip this page because we're already kind of at the 20-minute mark. Um, what I would have done was probably go ahead and talk through a couple of these, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. So let's talk through what you would be doing for homework for tonight. Um, we are looking at number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6. So number 8, we are looking for a value of 135 when we are finished. So what I would do is go ahead and figure out what the value of your exponent is first, because we're always going to have to do that at some point um, before we would add or subtract or multiply or divide. So that gives you an idea of exactly what numbers we're working with, and then you can figure out how to group those together. We are going to do number 10. So we get an expression that's going to be 10 plus 6 squared to figure out how much he has saved. And that one is actually relatively easy to do. And then on the back, we're going to do number 3, number 4, and number 6. So if we spent $5 to buy 4 raffle tickets, how many raffle tickets can we buy with $20? Number 4, we are using percentages again. So again, what I would recommend that you do is go ahead and find 10% of that number. You can do that by dividing by 10. Then if you cut it in half, the number that you get for 10%, cut that in half. That would give you the 5%, and then add those together. And then number 6, we want to go ahead and take our expressions in order from least to greatest. So we have 1 to the 5th power, 3 to the 3rd power, 4 to the 2nd power, and 8 to the 1st power. We want to figure out which one of those has the least value. Then we would go upward from there until we have our largest value. So that's what I'd like you to go ahead and do for homework. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me in Google Classroom. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.